No flashing cameras, no roaring crowd, just a quiet moment that felt heavier than any standing ovation. After Tina Turner passed, the world replayed her dazzling triumphs and soul-shaking performances, mourning the queen of rock and roll with reverence. But beneath the headlines and tributes, a silence lingered. Then, out of nowhere, someone close to her heart finally broke that silence, not with a grand statement, but something raw, deeply personal. And what he revealed caught even her most loyal fans by surprise. Why now? What was left behind that none of us saw coming? Tina's story didn't begin in the spotlight. It started in shadows. Shadows cast by abandonment, silence, and a childhood that shaped everything to come. Born Anna Mae Bullock, Tina grew up in a house that knew more yelling than laughter, more tension than tenderness. Her parents' relationship was riddled with volatility. Then, at just 11, her mother walked out without a goodbye. Shortly after, her father remarried and left too. Suddenly, she was alone, emotionally and physically, left in the care of strict grandparents who enforced obedience but gave little warmth. This wasn't just a story of neglect, it was the origin of a wound that would never quite close. Tina often spoke about those years with a haunting honesty. She didn't feel wanted, didn't feel loved, as if she were drifting in a world that didn't have a place for her. Even the gospel music she found in church couldn't silence the loneliness she carried. Picking cotton, scrubbing floors, obeying rules, it was all routine, but none of it made her feel safe. Her grandparents' Baptist faith gave structure but no comfort. No embrace to say, "You matter." Every day felt like a silent battle, and from those early years, Tina learned something far more vital than talent. She learned survival. Before she ever picked up a microphone, life had already tested her strength. As a teenager, things didn't get easier. After a brief reunion with her mother in St. Louis, tragedy struck again. Her maternal grandmother, one of the few stable presences in her life, passed away. Then came the crushing news. Her half-sister had died in a car accident. Another crack in her fragile foundation. Grief layered upon grief, isolation sinking deeper into her bones. But even through the sorrow, something inside her refused to break. That same inner fire that would one day fuel her performances was already flickering. Those years shaped her in ways most people never saw. Working in white households in Tennessee, she scrubbed floors while quietly studying how power worked, how inequality carved out invisible walls. She didn't complain, but she noticed. Those observations hardened her. They made her sharper, more aware, and they left her with a lingering question. Why does life make some people invisible? Fast forward to her late teens, a time when most are just discovering who they are. Tina was about to be reborn. A chance night at a St. Louis nightclub changed everything. She wasn't supposed to sing that night, but fate had other plans. As the band finished their set, she boldly asked to join in. And when she opened her mouth, something electric happened. Her voice, gritty, soulful, filled with raw pain, stunned everyone, especially bandleader Ike Turner. He saw something in her that night, not just talent, but possibility. He gave her a stage name, Tina Turner, and with it, a whole new identity. But it wasn't just a name, it was ownership. Ike even trademarked Tina Turner, ensuring that if she ever tried to leave, she couldn't take her name with her. From the very beginning, her stardom came with strings. Still, when she hit the stage, Tina came alive in ways words couldn't explain. She didn't just perform, she ignited. Her energy was volcanic, her voice like thunder. Audiences were mesmerized. And yet, behind that dazzling light, she still wrestled with doubt. Off stage, she wasn't sure of her own worth, but on stage, she was unstoppable. Their act, the Ike and Tina Turner Revue, quickly rose to fame. A mix of blistering rhythm and explosive choreography, their shows lit up venues across the US and Europe. From soul clubs to stadiums, Tina became the face of the Revue. But while she electrified the crowds, Ike controlled everything behind the scenes: contracts, money, the direction of her life. Was this Tina's way of fighting back, channeling her pain through every high kick and scream? Was the stage her only safe place, the only place she owned? Even as she soared, she was still tethered, yet something was shifting. Her energy began outshining the act. The girl who had been renamed, reshaped, and restrained was starting to break free, though she didn't know it yet. The Tina the world adored was more than a performer. She was a survivor hiding in plain sight. And the further she rose, the more it became clear. The persona was a shield, a lifeline. Fame had given her power, but it also stole something irreplaceable. Could she ever be Anna May again? Or had the spotlight swallowed that part of her forever? Behind the music, the truth unraveled slowly. Their performances were pure fire, legendary, unforgettable. But offstage, a very different story was unfolding. Their marriage, which began in 1962, was far from the glamorous image they projected. Tina was being torn apart behind closed doors, mentally and emotionally. Ike managed the business, but also the person. Tina had little control over her own life, despite being the star. Fans saw chemistry, but what they didn't see was coercion. What looked like partnership was performance. The truth? Her soul was aching while she danced her heart out. Hits like Proud Mary and River Deep Mountain High cemented her as a force of nature. But every cheer, every sold-out tour came at a heavy cost. Tina was living in two realities, idolized by millions and trapped behind the scenes. Could the woman so worshipped on stage really be fading off it? Could a smile hide so much suffering? Years later, she admitted that she felt something shift the moment she saw him, but experience had made her cautious. For Tina, trust had to be earned, not assumed. And Erwin seemed to understand that intuitively. He didn't push, didn't prod. He simply stood by her, unshaken, as their connection grew from cautious glances to long conversations and eventually something real. Could this man really be different? Could he see her not as a spectacle or a symbol, but simply as a woman trying to heal? It was the kind of love story few expected for Tina Turner, a woman who had survived so much, rebuilt from nothing, and soared higher than anyone believed possible. And yet, here she was, slowly letting someone in. The vulnerability it required was far more courageous than any stage performance. Erwin didn't fall in love with the legend. He fell for Anna Mae Bullock, the woman behind the wigs, the strength, the headlines. The woman who had once run across a highway barefoot just to escape pain. Tina often described Erwin as her anchor. In a world that had always demanded more, more, he asked for nothing. As her fame continued to grow and the spotlights got brighter, he remained a quiet presence at her side. They moved in together in Switzerland, where Tina found the solitude she craved and the simplicity she'd been denied. The paparazzi were less intrusive, the pace slower, the pressure dialed down. For the first time, Tina Turner didn't have to perform to be loved. But even paradise comes with tests. Tina's health, which she had battled for years in private, began to deteriorate. She suffered from high blood pressure, kidney issues, and complications that quietly compounded. Still, she kept much of it out of public view, never wanting to be pitied, never wanting her pain to overshadow her legacy. And Erwin? He didn't flinch. When her kidneys failed, he stepped forward in the most unthinkable way, offering one of his own, without hesitation, without expectation. It was a gift not just of survival, but of love in its purest, most unselfish form. How many people would do that, quietly, without needing to be seen? In an industry fueled by ego and headlines, this act of devotion stunned those close to her. And yet, Tina never broadcast it. She simply said, "He gave me a second chance at life." For someone who had once rebuilt her career from ashes, this second lease was something entirely different. It wasn't about stage lights or awards. It was about mornings filled with laughter, walks by the lake, and conversations that didn't need to be shouted. They married in 2013 after nearly 3 decades together. Tina wore a black and green silk Armani gown and walked down the aisle in a garden overlooking Lake Zurich. The guest list included Oprah, David Bowie, and Giorgio Armani, but Tina made it clear this wasn't a show. It was a celebration of peace, hard-earned, a closing of one chapter and the beginning of a gentler, more intimate one where love wasn't a performance, it was the space between words, the silence that felt safe. Still, Tina Turner was never one to be fully contained by any one storyline. Even as she settled into life in Switzerland, she remained a towering figure in culture. The Broadway musical about her life drew sold-out crowds. Tributes poured in from Beyoncé, Janet Jackson, and so many others who credited Tina with paving the road they now walk on. Her strength had once been about escape, survival, and comeback. But in this new era, it became something else. Stillness, contentment, wholeness. And that's where the real twist lies. For all her fame, for all the highs and lows, Tina's greatest triumph wasn't a Grammy, a chart hit, or a stadium full of screaming fans. It was this quiet love, a love that asked for nothing but gave everything. It's a story that reminds us, sometimes the real fairy tales begin after the spotlight fades.
Looking back, Tina Turner's life played out like a symphony. Equal parts chaos, beauty, sorrow, and strength. But in Erwin Bach, she found the calm crescendo that finally made the music whole. It's hard not to wonder, what if she had never stepped off that plane? What if she had stayed guarded forever? But then again, that's the magic of her journey. Just when the world thought her story had been told, she wrote one more chapter, quiet, radiant, and unforgettable. After years trapped in a cycle of fear, Tina Turner stood at a crossroads. Was she still capable of trusting love? She wasn't sure. She'd survived betrayal, pain, and a world that once refused to believe in her worth. Love had once felt like a prison sentence. So when Erwin Bach entered her life, she didn't leap. She hesitated. Could someone truly love her for who she was? Without the fame, without the perfection, without the scars tucked just beneath the surface. What unfolded next was something she never expected. Erwin didn't chase her. He didn't try to fix her. He simply stayed. Patient, steady, safe. And for a woman who'd once been conditioned to expect that love came wrapped in chaos, this calm devotion was foreign. But over time, it became the most healing kind of truth. The kind of love that doesn't demand anything back. For 27 years, they built a life of quiet elegance in Switzerland. And in 2013, she finally said yes. Not to the idea of marriage, but to the idea that she was still worthy of peace. Their lakeside wedding was small, timeless. Oprah Winfrey and Bryan Adams were among the few who witnessed the vows. Yet the greatest proof of their bond didn't come with rings or champagne. It came 4 years later. In 2017, Erwin gave Tina one of his kidneys when her health was failing and she was ready to surrender. "I didn't want to go through dialysis," she later confessed. "I was at peace with leaving." But Erwin wasn't. His gift didn't just save her life. It showed her what unconditional love looked like in the most literal sense. With him, Tina Turner didn't just survive. She flourished. Gone was the need to perform in her private life. She could be soft, flawed, vulnerable, and still be cherished. "He never tried to change me," she said in an interview. "He just let me be me." That wasn't just love. That was redemption. Her personal evolution mirrored a cultural one. Tina's name now echoes far beyond music. It lives in the language of power, survival, and liberation. Her story has become a rallying cry for women everywhere who've been silenced, broken, underestimated. In facing her past so publicly, Tina gave others the courage to do the same. Not because she was perfect, but because she never pretended to be. She challenged the norms of womanhood, race, and age. The world told her she was too old to be sexy, too black to be mainstream, too broken to come back. She answered with mini dresses, stadium tours, and the kind of raw honesty that cuts through the noise. Beyoncé called her the ultimate, and Angela Bassett's portrayal of her on screen brought that fire to an entirely new generation. Tina didn't ask to be an icon. She earned it every step of the way. And when you look at the glimmer of her financial empire, it's clear she lived with intention. Her wealth wasn't loud, it was legacy-driven. Tina owned luxury real estate in Switzerland and the south of France. She had a collection of European cars, including a Bentley Continental and a classic Mercedes SL, though she often preferred the quiet luxury of private travel. Her watch choices? Subtle yet iconic. Cartier and Patek Philippe were staples. She invested in music publishing, quietly acquiring rights to her own catalog before eventually selling it in a landmark deal reportedly worth $50 million. Insurance protected everything: her health, her voice, her estate. Financially disciplined, she showed us wealth isn't about excess, it's about freedom. Her strategy was simple: own your story, then own your future. The most valuable lesson? Reinvention is the ultimate investment. Tina didn't spend to impress. She spent to protect, to sustain, to uplift. But perhaps nothing illustrates Tina's journey more than her spiritual awakening. In the darkest corners of her life, Buddhism found her. Or maybe she found it. During her final years with Ike, she began chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, unsure if it would help. At first, it was just sound. Then it became survival. Slowly, her spirit began to mend. It wasn't about religion. It was about reclaiming her power. Each chant was a rebellion against the pain that had defined her. As the years passed, this practice shaped the very core of her identity. She even released a meditative album, Beyond, blending chants with spiritual soundscapes. Tina's faith wasn't loud or performative. It was grounding. It helped her see she didn't need to escape her past. She just needed to stop letting it own her. Tina Turner didn't need the spotlight anymore. She had finally found the light within. Even now, her influence ripples outward. She's become more than an icon. She's a movement, a compass for anyone clawing their way out of something dark. A reminder that your past can bruise you, but it doesn't get to bury you. Tina Turner didn't just turn pain into power. She turned silence into song, fear into faith, and survival into legacy. And though her voice may be gone, her message will echo louder than ever. Not just in the music, but in every woman who decides to rise anyway. Because Tina didn't just live a legendary life, she lit the path for those still finding theirs.